everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live on this Thursday afternoon. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you. We'll take your phone calls at 201-939-4513, hashtag Giants Chat. As promised, Paul and I will give you our off-season blueprints. We kind of had a show like this, gosh, Paul, what was it, about a month ago? Maybe a month and a half ago? Something like that in the middle of January. But now that we know who the free agents are going to be, exactly what this draft process is looking at, we can give you a more detailed plan in terms of what we would like to do in free agency and the draft in terms of how you build this Giants team out in 2025. Would you like to go first? I kind of started with free agency, and then I'd have the draft here because that's the order in which it happens in real life. So would you like to lead us off?
To be careful, folks, I'm talking about Team X because we cannot have tampering issues here. So we're talking Team X.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, most of these guys we're talking about are going to be free.
Well, we understand that, but Team X, I want to avoid any kind of issues. So if I were Team X and I had holes on my roster similar to what the Giants have, I would sign Russell Wilson. And I would try to give him a $25 million guarantee with a deal that would include escapes after the first year. I don't know if he's going to do that for just 1 year, John, but if he's willing to do that, that would be great. Now, whether or not it's an escape hatch deal or whether or not it's got a void deal, I suspect he's going to want a 2-year deal. I think. I don't necessarily know if I'm really happy to commit 2 years to him, but I'm willing to commit to him a deal that's going to give him $25 million guaranteed, even if I've only used him for 1 season. I would do that.
I have him around the same area. Okay, I'm on board with that.
And I think that for me, that sets me up into a pretty good spot because now I am going to draft Travis Hunter with the number 3 overall pick.
Okay, so we're going to jump around here. Okay.
Well, because they're kind of intertwined.
Okay, I got you.
Right?
That's fine.
If I'm going to get that veteran quarterback, Russell Wilson, I'm now going to draft Travis Hunter at 3 or Abdul Carter. If Hunter is gone, I would take Abdul Carter. I'm going to assume my medics will check off on him.
Yes.
All right, because we don't have any idea. So I'll assume he will be cleared. I'm taking either Hunter or Carter. I don't think both will be gone at 3.
No, I don't think so either. Okay.
Okay.
If both are gone, who would you pick?
If both are gone, I would really desperately try to trade down a few spots if I could.
Okay, if you can, who are you picking? Would you pick Cam Ward?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm trading up into the bottom of the first round to get Jackson Dart.
Okay, so I'm assuming you would pick Mason Graham down at 3.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know about you.
Put Mason Graham
I got
there.
you. Okay.
Now, just to finish off this section, and then you can go.
No, I don't know. I want you to finish your full plan before I talk it all. Go ahead.
Oh, so I'm trading my picks numbers 34 and 65 to the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to get back numbers 27 and 91. According to the draft value chart, that works.
I think that sounds fair.
It works.
No, I'm with you on that.
According
That's
to
fine.
the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the only reason I'm doing that is if at 27, Dart is still there. If Dart's not there, I'm not doing it.
Obviously.
But let's assume for a second that Jackson Dart is still there at 27. I think I've got enough capital to make that move, and I'm comfortable with that move, to make the trade and go get Jackson Dart at 27.
Okay.
With pick number 91, which is the flop that I have to give Baltimore, I'm going to take Ty Robinson, the Nebraska defensive tackle.
Okay, I think he'll be there.
I think so, too.
It'll be close.
I tried to be reasonable here, John.
I think so far you're doing great.
Because it's really hard.
I think so far you're doing good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
At 104, okay, I'm taking Caldwell, the defensive tackle out of Oregon.
Okay.
I think he's got a good chance to be there.
I think that's
very reasonable.
I think that's very reasonable. I'm with you.
So now I've got a 3 technique and I've got a plug.
A bigger guy. You got one of each. I like it.
Each.
No, I like it.
And I want that.
I like it.
I want 2 defensive tackles in this draft.
I like it.
Okay. Then I'm going to hope that Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State running back, is there at 134.
No, I think that's realistic. I have no problem with that.
Could be close.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Could be close, but
okay.
I want the bruiser.
So you have your banger.
You know I want a bruiser.
That's fine.
Okay. I got at 155 wide receiver Troy Horton out of Colorado State.
That might be tight, but okay.
Well, he's a speedster. I want a speedster.
Okay.
And he's got some size.
I got you.
Okay, he's not a skyscraper, but he's got some size.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to go all the way down to the 7th round because I don't have any 6s. Okay, so I got to go to the 7th. And now I'm picking up kind of scrap guys. Now, I'm going to take Nazir Stackhouse out of Georgia, the defensive tackle, in the 7th round at number 221 because I want that extra big body in there. I want to protect myself with another big body. And I know that one of the guys we talked to, was it Ryan Fowler?
3 defensive tackles, huh?
Yeah.
I like it. All right.
I want beef, John.
I'm okay with that.
I want beef.
I'm not arguing with you. I like the aggression.
And I don't trust the guys who are on the roster right now.
I get it.
Outside of Dexter. Then at 248, with my last pick, I'm taking Jalen Travis, the offensive tackle out of Iowa State.
I will say that this is the only unrealistic one for me.
He doesn't make it?
I think he could be a 4th or a 5th rounder.
Ooh, you like him that high?
No, I don't. But I think he has a chance to be a high-end backup. And usually at offensive tackle,
they're hard to get.
Those guys are going to be off the board in round 5.
I know.
At the absolute latest.
But
I think you did really well here with your plan. All right, what else do you have in free agency?
My free agents, I'm going to sign Tre'Davious White. I know he's been hurt.
I don't know how much he's got left.
I know he's been hurt.
His legs.
I know that he's got a lot to prove.
Mm-hmm.
I know that as the season went on last year, when he started off really rough, and then played better.
He did. Yeah, as you get further away from the injury.
I'm hoping you could squeeze a good year out of him if you need it. Now, the reason I'm going there is because I have to do this before the draft.
And I'm noting there's not one cornerback in your draft.
No.
So you are really counting on Tre'Davious White here.
Because I went heavy on the defensive tackles.
No, I understand. So
and
you're risking
is there.
You're risking having issues at corner this year.
I had to be thin somewhere.
No, and that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Now, I couldn't find value where I picked those DTs at corner. I just couldn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to sign White, and my hope is that I'm getting Travis Hunter in the draft so that White is basically my insurance policy for either Banks or Hunter.
Oh, you have Hunter. That's right. No, see, you have a quarter in the draft. You have Hunter. Oh, that makes sense. I'm sorry. Correct.
Well,
no, that's fine.
You meant deeper in the draft.
No, but even so,
I understood.
I was looking at your list and I missed Hunter's kind of on top by himself.
Oh, yeah.
And I missed him.
He is on by himself.
And I missed him. Go ahead. No, you're right.
Okay.
That's fair.
So I'm thinking that Tre'Davious White is my insurance policy, and I don't want to spend a lot of money on an insurance policy.
And he would be your 4th corner then, too.
Yeah.
Flott, Banks, and Hunter would be your 1 through 3, and then he would be number 4.
And if he needs to play, I'm okay with that.
And I'm putting Drew Phillips separately as the slot.
Yes.
I'm talking outside guy.
I don't consider in the same guy.
Same.
All right. I'm going to sign, according to the Spot Rack, they've got him at only $2 million.
I think he'll be very cheap. I think that's
so.
accurate.
I'm not really taking much of a risk on him financially.
No, you're not.
I
have no problem taking a
Mike Williams, they've got him down as a $5 million one-year deal.
I agree. I don't believe he's going to be that expensive.
And you know what? I'm going to take a flyer there because I know he was hurt prior. He's come back. This is now a year removed. He's only 31.
Something like that, yeah.
I think he's got something left in his tank. And he's going to be my skyscraper. Okay? And then I'm going to go and I'm going to sign Brandon Scherf. Now, you know how much I loved him when he came out of school.
That's why I'm smiling.
And I'm finally going to get my hands on Brandon Scherf.
Again, he's not a high-level guard anymore, but that's why he's not going to cost a lot of money, but he's still very solid.
The internet has him down estimated at $7 million for 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have to give him 2, but I think that's a good average per year.
Now, I think he's only 33 years old.
Yeah, he's in his low 30s.
And,
he's on my list here.
He's not super-duper prospect that he once was when he came out of the draft. But, he's got mileage. And that's why you can probably get him for under $10 million.
All right,
and that's how I fortified all these different holes.
What are you worried about after you finish that? Your little team. Where do you think you've left some issues where you're like, I wish I went a little heavier here?
Well, again, there's such a gamble. You don't know if you're going to get Travis Hunter, and if I don't get Travis Hunter, I'm thin at corner.
Well, but then
I don't get Travis.
But I think if you ended up picking Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, then you could turn one of those defensive tackles you picked into a corner.
But as it stands now, I don't have any insurance.
Do you feel okay about where the Giants are at edge with everything you did? Like, who's playing behind Thibodeau and Burns?
Yeah,
that's kind of one thing. And the safety in your list either.
No, because I'm re-signing Pinnock.
Okay.
I'm okay with Pinnock and Newbin.
Yeah, so I
and
think
Belton.
safety and edge would be 2 spots. You don't have a second tight end in there anywhere. In a really
I'm actually
good class.
okay with my tight ends.
Okay.
I'm okay with my tight ends. I don't see the need to spend capital on them. I don't see the need to spend capital on safeties because I think I'm going to get Pinnock back.
And I will say generally,
edge rush is a good point, though. You're right. I'm leaving myself a little thin there because, although I don't know, is Azeez Ojulari going to come back cheap because he's been injured and has nowhere to go?
Well, he's not on your list, so I'm assuming he's gone.
No, well, he would be a re-sign. I didn't put Pinnock on here either.
All right.
Because he'd be a re-sign.
I got you. Well, I see what you're saying.
So that's what I'm looking at. Hey, it's not perfect.
It's not bad.
It's not perfect, but I did fortify a number of areas with I think are
you did pretty
reasonable. Are reasonable.
I don't think you were very. I feel like they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency than you were in your thing here, and here's why: not a ton of cap space this year, but they have so much cap space next year.
Yep.
I think they can structure some contracts where they minimize the base salary in year 1.
They can.
And they push some money into year 2 because they're never going to spend $100 million next year. And there's nobody coming up for a contract that's going to take up a bunch of money next year on the team itself in terms of re-signing. I'm not forgetting anyone, right?
No.
I mean, Thibodeau would be the only guy if you pick up the 5th-year option, but that's not going to be astronomical.
Not astronomical.
So there's no one coming up here where you're like, oh, man, we got to pay this guy a ton of money. So I think you could be a little bit more aggressive this year, push some money into next season if you have to with some of these guys. So my free agency plan is going to be a little bit more aggressive here. Okay? I'm with you. I have veteran quarterback in free agency. I know earlier in this process, I kind of thought Fields might be a good fit. The more I watched him, I don't think that's where Brian Daboll wants to go. I feel like he wants a veteran quarterback in here that can execute his vision. And that means a more pass-oriented veteran quarterback. So I'm with you.
Okay.
I have Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's going to be a 2-year deal. I think you set it up where you can get out after 1, but the quarterback still walks away with a good chunk of money after 1 year. Yeah. So similar to the way you talked about, I think your number sounds about right, to be honest with you. So we're on a similar spot there. Whichever guy it ends up being, I have Russell Wilson first just because all the media stuff that I don't want to deal with from a job perspective and the potential controversy. But honestly, like throw for throw, Rodgers is probably a better quarterback than Russell Wilson right now, at least in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So if that's where they end up going, that's where they end up going. And I think, again, you set it up so that you don't have that contract. Make a lot of it signing bonus, so you spread that over a couple years of a contract.
And you could even give per-game roster bonuses, too.
However you want to do it. Yeah. Just don't have a bunch of money in that first year so it limits your flexibility. Mm-hmm. I'm going after a veteran cornerback. So
You want the Packer guy, right?
I want to come home with either Packers.
Jair
Alexander? No.
Jair Alexander.
Well,
you don't want him.
He'd be a trade anyway. No.
Yeah. But if you trade, you got to pick up his contract.
I got 3 guys for you.
Okay.
And I'll take any one of these 3. And I think they're both going to be somewhere between 10 and 15 million. One guy on the lower end of that. Give me DJ Reed, Charvarius Ward, or Asante Samuel Jr. I'll take any one of those 3 guys. I'm happy with any 3. They all have played a lot of zone. Remember, they both were in the Robert Saleh San Francisco Jet system. Samuel was his own corner coming out, reads the quarterback. Samuel especially can get his hand on the ball. I think he'd be the cheapest of those 3 coming off of injury. But give me one of those 3 guys. Reed and Ward are both under 30. They're both 28 or 29. Samuel's going to be 26. I think he's 25 right now. So give me one of those 3 corners. Okay?
So high teens on the money for those guys probably, right? 16 in that area?
I don't think any one of those guys goes over 15.
Okay. If you could do it, I wouldn't strongly object if you could do it.
I'd say 3 years, 45. You want to give an average, something like that, in that area? And I think one of those 3 guys will be in that zone.
Now, tie in, you don't think you're drafting Travis Hunter then if you're going to sign somebody for that much money? Or do you?
I don't know. Let's see. I'll get to my draft in a second. Okay. Wait out the receiver market and get a vet on the second wave.
Yeah.
Now, I want to see how expensive the Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins group is. The bigger outside receiver. I think any one of those 2.
Right.
And I think Devontae Adams, I have him on my list. I think he'll probably end up being too expensive. But if Rodgers comes...
He will.
If Rodgers comes...
then you have to.
You don't know. You don't know. So look at
Aaron has his want list, John. You get him what he wants.
Well, that's the difference here. I don't think the Giants have to approach it the way the Jets did. He's not the guy that was coming off an MVP year 2 years ago. So I don't think you have to cater in that way, to be honest with you.
I think, though, if he comes, wherever he goes...
Well, Adams is still a good player. That's the thing. I'm not throwing Alan Lazard a $40 million contract.
No. But I think Adams is likely to go where Rodgers lands.
Right. But again, I don't want to pay him $20 million a year either.
I wouldn't either.
So that's my point.
I hate to do that.
Let me see where those guys land. Like, if Amari Cooper ends up being a 2-year, $18 million contract, like, that's not bad, given the year he's coming off. So, again, let me see where the money lands for those two guys. If you can get one of those guys for cheap, great. If not, then I'm going into the Mike Williams category.
Yeah.
He's on my list, too. He's my second group.
Yeah.
I like De'Ami Brown as a speed guy.
Okay.
Across from Neighbors. He's very similar to Darius Slayton in the way they play. And I think he'll be cheaper. So, De'Ami Brown.
Okay.
And then the other guy I have is from the Chargers, Josh Palmer, who's a little bit of a bigger guy.
Tennessee.
6'2", 210.
I remember him.
He's been pretty good for the Chargers.
He's
been a pretty solid number 3 type wide receiver. So, and I think he's an under $10 million a year guy, too.
He would be.
So, those are the 3 second-level guys. If you can't get one of those vets, if price doesn't come way down, then I would go to that second level worth of guys. But I don't want to spend more than $10 million a year. That's on the second wide receiver.
I would not want to get tempted to think that I could get one of the higher guys for the price that you're hoping to get.
I'm giving you my price point, and whichever guy fits into that price point, that's where I would go.
Fair.
Okay? You never know. Sometimes older 30-plus-year wide receivers, the market dries up on them fast. So I want to keep my options open.
It can.
I want to keep my options open. All right. Guard. If you can get Tevin Jenkins for less than $15 million, I'd love to do it, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so.
Again, I'm just giving you my price point, okay?
Okay.
That's my price point there.
Okay.
So assuming that's not going to work out, I would look at my second level guys at Brandon Sheriff or James Daniels from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He's a 320-pound guard. He's had some good years. He comes from a physical program in Pittsburgh. I'd be okay with that as a second-level guard.
I would not object to Daniels.
And the other guy that's a little bit interesting to me is Patrick McCarry from the Ravens. And the reason is that he has experience playing tackle too. Okay. So remember what I've always talked about, Paul. I want to have some type of backup plan that I feel great about in case Andrew Thomas gets hurt. And if Andrew Thomas gets hurt, I can slide Illuminor over to left tackle, and then I can put McCarry at right tackle. All right? And then do whatever you want to do at right guard. Figure that out. All right? So I like the Patrick McCarry idea. He might get too expensive because of that versatility. Like if he approaches $10 million, I can't go there for that.
Right.
But if you can get him for like $7 million, cool. I don't think you can.
Will. I don't think you will.
But can you get him for the Jermaine Illuminor contract last year? Maybe. Maybe. So that intrigues me. Let me see the price point on him.
All right.
Otherwise, I like the James Daniel, Brandon Sheriff idea as the right guard.
Okay.
Then finally, defensive tackle is tough. It's such a good group in the draft. B.J. Hill, I think he'd be solid as a rock if you brought him back, but I think he's going to be too expensive.
We can't pay him.
Levi Onwuzurike, I don't know how much he's going to make because he has not been nearly as consistent as a B.J. Hill.
Right.
He's had some flashes. He's also smaller. He's only 290 pounds, so he's more of an upfield, 3-technique pass rusher type, and I think the Giants, first and foremost, want to make sure they're better against the run before they worry about pass rush. So I have Poona Ford on there as a cheaper guy that I think can do a little bit of both. He's only 5'11", but I like those kind of stout guys that is hard to move because of a low center of gravity.
Andre Patterson would like him.
Yes. So Poona Ford is a guy I have on there, and then DJ Jones from Denver is another cheaper defensive tackle that can be somebody that can stop the run. So I think getting greedy with some of these guys, they're going to be too expensive. But I set my price point. Like this backup defensive tackle, I'm looking at like $5-6 million a year, something like that, right? Find a guy that can get in there, can be reliable, stop the run. You don't even need that much pass rush juice, and then you figure out defensive tackle.
So you want one DT in free agency and one in the draft?
That's what I have.
Okay.
That's what I have. Now, draft. I have 2 scenarios here because I don't know if the first one's going to work. I'm going to try to get Cam Ward. All right. I don't know if the Titans are going to be willing to trade with me. Okay?
Right.
Let's say, I'm assuming Ward's not going to just be there at 3. I'm assuming he's going to be gone. I thought that was unrealistic, so I did not make that one of my scenarios.
I agree with you.
If I want Cam Ward, I feel like I have to move to 1 to get him.
I think that's probably
in my
true.
scenario, I don't know what the exact cost is going to be. I'm assuming it's one of your day 2 picks. So whether it's second or third round, I'm assuming that pick is gone in that trade. I'm assuming it's going to be your second round pick, but maybe it's your third, however you set it up. One of your day 2 picks, if you move from 3 to 1, is going to be out the door.
That's pretty sure.
Right. So in rounds 2 and 4, I pick a defensive tackle. If you have your round 2 pick, I'm looking at Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State.
Yeah.
I'd love him with your round 2 pick.
See, I couldn't do that because I traded my 2 to get Dart.
Totally
he was
get
my
it.
guy, though.
Totally get it.
I had it. I had him as my guy at the top of the second round.
I think with the Browns looking for a quarterback, you're going to have to give up your second round pick to move up to 1. Because there's going to be competition there.
I think so, too.
That's my gut feeling. A lot of people really think it's going to be cheap. There's too many guys that want quarterbacks.
Yeah.
For this to be some like minuscule like a 2 third-round pick moves.
Well,
I'll believe it when I see it. So I don't buy that. So assuming it's a third rounder, I'm still going to go defensive tackle there, not because of need, just because it's such a deep class. So the guys I have written down for a potential third rounder, I have Josh Farmer out of Florida State, who I think is a good. I'm trying to find two-way players here. I want a guy that can stop the run and give you a little bit of juice as a pass rusher. Jordan Phillips out of Maryland.
We both
guy.
like him a lot.
And then I have C.J. West out of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be a little early for him. Maybe he'd be your 4th rounder in this scenario instead of your 3rd rounder. But I think all 3 of those guys would be good players in that range. And then I would consider an edge player in that group too, with that either 3rd or 4th round pick, and I kind of putting those into the same boat a little bit. If one of those good players is left on the edge, I would consider going there too. Just because it's such a deep class at that position. You know, if Princely Amon Yalen drops there, Oladejo from UCLA on the top of the 3rd round, if one of those guys happens to fall, I would consider doing something like that, okay? And remember, you have 2 4th-round picks.
Yes.
Because you're going to get that content.
That's what we think.
We think.
Yeah.
So those are the guys I would look like for there. And then to round out the rest of the draft, you got running back, tight end, and guard. Those would be the 3 spots that I attack just because I think they're so deep.
Okay.
I'm looking for the explosive running back because I feel like Tracy can do between the tackles, Singletary can do between the tackles, but I want the guy with juice. That you get the ball in space, he can make some plays. So Jalen Blue, R.J. Harvey, Bashal Tutin. Those are the 3 explosive guys.
Harvey and Tutin, I would understand.
In round 4 and 5, if they're there, I consider them. You want to wait a little bit later, 6th or 7th round, Marcus Yarns out of Delaware. He's a good 3rd down back, not as explosive, but a good receiver, and he's got some speed. All right? Bangers you talked about, if not Ollie Gordon, Damian Martinez, I think he'll be too rich. Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech is like 5'10", 230.
Yes.
So he's not a speed guy, but he can get, if there's 3 yards, he'll get you 4. He's a banger. He's a good player. And then Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers, I think, is a good all-around back. If you want to get him on day 3 is a position you could go. I like the idea of getting a tight end. I don't know when Oronde Gadsden Jr. is going to go. I'm curious to see how he tests.
I think he'll be late.
If he tests well, he could be early. So that's I want a receiving tight end.
You do?
I think Theo Johnson is going to be a good blocker. I want a guy that can give you some juice in the passing game.
Interesting.
So, Gunnar Helm, if he drops to round 4 or 5 with his ankle and the way he tested, I like Gunnar Helm, and I like Oronde Gadsden out of Syracuse. I think Gadsden might go too early. We'll see. If you want a blocker, a tight end, Luke Lachey or Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame.
Yeah, I like Lachey.
And then a late guard, Willie Lampkin, the really smaller guy, but he had a good Senior Bowl. And then I don't know the Miles Frazier out of LSU. He's a conversion from to guard.
I don't know he gets down. You're talking about the 7th?
6th. Yeah, you can always move up. It might be too rich. I agree with you. He was the guy that was an outlier. Clay Webb and Jackson Slater are 2 small school guys that would like as late round draft picks. That's if I'm able to get move up and draft the Miami quarterback. All right. Scenario 2: you can't get the quarterback. You got to sit there, and you can't. With the big Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, take your pick. You pick whichever one guy is there. But here's the thing: at this point, I don't know who's going to be there. So that's why I had to be aggressive in corner in free agency because I don't know if Travis Hunter's going to be there.
I know,
and I can't risk that. So I had to be aggressive in corner in free agency. Okay. Best cornerback, best defensive tackle at the top of round 2. So again, I'm looking at Tyleik Williams again, Darius Alexander, and Derek Harmon. Whichever one of those 3 guys is there, I hope one of those 3 guys is there.
There's a chance.
Them if they're there.
There's a chance.
One of those 3, okay? Round 3, Tyler Shook. I'm throwing the dart at the quarterback because I did not get one in the draft. I did not get one in round 1. So I'm going with Shook in round 3 as a guy that I can try to develop a little bit.
Yeah, John, it was so clear at Indianapolis. The football guys just loved his traits.
No, his traits are great.
So,
but I can't pick him in round 2.
No, I'm not saying you can't take him in 2.
And if I have to move up a little bit into back of round 2, maybe, but I'm not using pick 34 on him. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So, and again, he might not get to me there, but it is what it is.
That's an interesting call.
So, Schmeelk in round 3, that would be my developmental quarterback.
That's an interesting call.
I would go corner at the top of round 4. He's probably not going to get there. I like Azare Thomas out of Florida State. Benjamin Morrison, depending if the hip thing comes around. Yeah. And then I think the realistic name there is Kobe Bryant, the cornerback out of Kansas.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's really good at getting after the football. I like him there. Again, I have Gunnar Helm as a potential tight end there, or Rondé Gadsden Jr. as the second, fourth round pick. If you don't get the edge with Abdul Carter, I would consider an edge like David Walker there, who's a weird-shaped guy, but I think he's a really good player. Round 5, I'm back to my guards, my Clay Webbs, my Jackson Slaters. Savion Jones in round 4, if you want to go edge with David Walker, the bigger guy out of LSU. He'd be a guy I consider there too. And then I have Yarns again as my, end of the round running back type of spot.
So tight end and edge was more of an emphasis for you, and I was more concerned about the defensive line.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a tackle as a
day I'm taking
pick.
3 of them, though.
Yeah, no, you are. I think you have needs in a lot of different spots. But if they wind up with 2 tackles and another one on day 3, I would have zero problem with that.
Oh, you know what they say about taking big guys.
I don't know if I could pick 2 tackles in the first 4 rounds. But if you want to pick one in like 5 or 6, in addition to your one in round 2, I would have no problem with that.
The value just made me itch. I couldn't.
No, I get it.
I couldn't help.
And again, I don't know if these are necessarily needs, but I just know tight end and running back and edge are such good positions.
They're really good spots.
I want to make sure I get value for my picks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, I did take a running back.
No, I know you did. So that's kind of. I don't think our approaches are that different. To be honest with you,
I don't know that anything that we said is out of left field.
Dom, do you have any criticisms or thoughts hearing our
anything that was like totally crazy to you?
Or that we're forgetting?
I don't know that Schmeelk makes it to the 3rd round.
No, he might not.
It's like it'd be like one of those honestly Bo Nix kind of thing where he was kind of 3rd round towards the end of the college season last year, and then he ends up going 11th or whatever it was.
You think he's gonna go first round?
No, I just think he's gonna get a weird rise like that.
No, I could see that, and that's why I think you might have to trade up in the 2nd round to get him. Which if you have to trade one of your 4s to move up to late 2nd to get him, I'd be okay with that.
I think at corner, I prefer DJ Reed over any of the other guys in free agency. I do like Asante Samuel Jr.
Yep.
Okay.
That's kind of what I would definitely. Corner and offensive line are my 2 priorities in free agency. I would say Noteboom from the Rams, I think, would be a potential good signing. He plays tackle, but I think he's played guard before too.
He was a guard before he moved up to tackle.
So I think he could do both. I think that would be a good.
He might get pricey, but yeah.
It would get really pricey, but that's the corner and offensive line in free agency, my 2 priorities. I don't think Travis Hunter is going to be there at 3.
All right, I like it, and I think I'm with Dom. I think you do have to be aggressive at corner because you don't know if you're going to get Hunter. You're playing a game of chicken.
I know.
You are playing a real game of chicken.
I know.
Not coming out of free agency with a corner.
Yeah.
All right, yell at us. Give us your opinions, give us your takes, give us your criticisms. Get on the line, 201-939-4513. We'll take your calls for the next half an hour. Check out Giants on the podcast, folks. Some great interviews went up this week. Cynthia Freeland earlier in the week. Paul and I went through a lot of kind of trends in the NFL and where it's heading with that interview. We talked some offensive line, too. That was really good. Steve Palazzolo was fantastic, talking about the draft and free agency. He's really good at picking out sleepers usually in the draft. Draft season earlier this week, Tony and I did our combine review. And then we pushed Joe Corey. We've mentioned that a couple of times to Friday because the Eli Manning show with Caitlin Clark came out today. So, guys, check that out on the Giants YouTube channel. We didn't want Joel stuff to get buried. So that'll pop up tomorrow as our presumptive free agency preview right here on the Giants Huddle podcast. So go check that out on the Giants app, giants.com/podcast, Giants YouTube channel, or just go to your favorite podcast platform. All right, 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino, right here with you on Big Blue Kickoff Live on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. We got a full bank of calls. We thank you guys for joining us on this Thursday. Just a reminder, next week we'll have our shows during free agency at 12:30 all week, except on Wednesday when we will have our show at the start of the league year at 4 p.m. That day on Wednesday, when hopefully we'll get some finalized deals right off the bat there and we can really dig into it. All right, let's go to David in North Carolina. He will lead us off today on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, guys. Doing well. Hope you are.
Hi. I'm doing well, Dan. By the way, I should make the point that I would try to trade up to the number one pick before free agency so I don't have to spend money on a really top-level veteran quarterback. But I was just assuming that the Titans would have absolutely no part of that. So I should have put that into my little plan here. David, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of circles around what I called in on before I got to hear the opening monologue there. It drives me crazy, and I know we all know it's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that it still doesn't drive me crazy how these quarterbacks get, in my opinion, overvalued and ultimately overdrafted. And
the position is so valuable, David, that people are going to do it, man. It's so important to winning. Teams are going to take their shots. It's just the way it goes.
And I get it. And as a Giants fan, I know a lot of us are dying to kind of potentially get that franchise guy. But sometimes, kind of like a few years ago when we had 2 top 10 picks, and I know, John, you guys have discussed in previous episodes that in hindsight, that probably wasn't the greatest draft to have 2 top 10 picks. I feel like, unfortunately for us, Lady Luck isn't on our side again. This probably isn't the year to have a top 3 pick looking for a quarterback. And
yeah, looking for a quarterback, yes, David, but I have swung. I think it's a bad year to be picking like 6th or 7th. I don't think it's a bad year to pick 3rd, because if you don't go quarterback, you're going to get a really good player in either Carter or Hunter.
Yeah,
so,
big time defense.
And I hope we're right about that, and I tend to agree with you. But I'm just looking at it from the quarterback perspective.
Sure.
And so I'll finish up here. When I think about the Giants when they got Eli, you think about that team and how it was just decimated by injuries the year before. Fossils let go because of, some perceived inconsistencies where the Giants would make the playoffs one year and then the following year maybe not. And we brought, regime change, new quarterback, et cetera. When I look at that team and the talent it had, and yes, the following year we hit home runs in free agency with Pierce, Burris, and McKenzie. But still, excluding that great free agent class, this team is so the potential 2025 Giants is so devoid of talent and depth. Please do not trade up for that number 1 pick. To me, all you need to know, when I start hearing it's going to take only 2 third-rounders or a second and a next year third, and I don't care what shape the Titans are in terms of their roster. If they're willing to forego a quarterback, that should be all we need to know, guys. Do not waste these resources. Top 5, second, third round, fourth round picks on a team this devoid of depth and overall talent they're priceless to me. And unless there was really a quarterback that scouts felt like could raise the tides of everyone. A Brett Favre in his prime, a Dan Marino in the 90s, where you feel like no matter what receivers they had or what team they had, you were going to have 9 or 10 wins.
So, David, I'm going to ask you, what are you doing at quarterback next year?
I think you owe it to the fans and the franchise and the guys on the roster. We have to get somebody right. Right now it's only Tommy DeVito. I agree you have to go get a veteran. Because really, you have to. Literally have to. We don't have anyone. And to me, I think it should be a position. Everybody wants to think about the quarterback position as this 10-year, 12-year position, and that's a fairy tale. Like Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, God bless him. I think the Eagles would be fine to get 5 or 6 great years out of him, and with him continuing to run in that read zone offense. And if he gets hurt, God forbid, being a Giants fan, I hope he doesn't, they would live with that. Like, start thinking about the position as a 5, 6, 7-year position. Draft a quarterback in the 2nd, 3rd round every 5 years. Like, continue to take swings at it, but don't be so desperate, which I feel like the Giants are, and trade resources for a guy that, let's be honest, before all the hype and before all the draft chatter happens, Cam Ward's not a number 1 pick. He's just not. And,
David, if I can interrupt for half a second, and you know how I feel, I'm not going up there. And I'm also not taking a quarterback at number 3. You know how I feel. I'm very, very harsh on that. Okay, so in that regard, we're the same. However, I did have to kind of turn my stomach a little bit and move up to number 27 in the first round to go get Jackson Dart, because I do understand that the Giants need to have a plan here, and they do have to have somebody. And I happen to like Jackson Dart a lot, and I think he's not ready now, but I think there is a lot more upside to him than there may be to the other guys. So that's why I did what I did to trade up to 27, and I don't even know if that's going to do it.
It might not.
I think there's a chance.
The same way that might not do it for Dart. My third-round pick might not do it for Shook. Correct.
It may not, but I was willing to take a swing at 27 if he's there. But as part of that deal, if you listen carefully, I did swap because I did not want to give up the extra round pick. So I swapped with Baltimore, and I gave up my 65 to get my 91 because there's too much depth in this draft for me to give up a round. I did not want to do that. So in that regard, I also agree with you. I did not want to go through a third round and not have a pick, John. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you, Paul. I mean, and I'm like you. I'm not 100% sold on Dart, but I could live with that, giving up some later round resources for Dart if Baltimore would agree to that deal. I could live with that. I just feel like we just need so much. I mean, I'm so sick and tired of Andrew Thomas ending our seasons. And I know you're not going to get a Pro Bowl left tackle, but if you could just get some depth, there for a guy to hold the position down for a game or two, right? Sometimes it feels like we don't even have enough depth to get by for a game or two with some of these key players. So, I just can't give up second and third round picks when we need so much.
Right, David, good stuff. I appreciate the point of view. And you know me, Paul, I'm not on board for drafting a quarterback just to draft one. The only reason I would be okay with Cam Ward is I do see high upside potential with him with his traits. I didn't say trade up to one to draft the other guy.
No, you did not.
So I should have said this the other day when we were talking about quarterbacks. What makes quarterbacks so unique? If you go in the first round, Paul, and you draft a guy who ends up being the 16th best cornerback in the league,
right?
That's okay. You get a good starting cornerback. He's a top 20. There are 64 starting corners.
Okay.
You are the guy that's in the top 25%. You feel good about that.
Sure.
He can help your team win a Super Bowl.
Sure.
What happens if you draft the 16th best quarterback?
It's not as good.
You're stuck in purgatory.
It's not as good.
So it's just different in drafting a quarterback.
Yeah,
you only draft one high if you feel like they have a chance to be a guy that can get you where you want to go. That's what makes it so difficult and so hard, because you might draft and that's why moving guys up is difficult, because the way I do like my draft rankings, right? Like I think I have second round I have labeled as like above average NFL starters, right?
Okay.
And if you ask me what Shedeur Sanders is going to be, I think he'll probably be an above average NFL starter. Maybe a good NFL starter, which is kind of a back end of a first round type of guy. Would that shock me? Nope. But
I'm actually not so sure he will be.
But even, like say, on the high end, what if he is? Okay?
Okay.
Let's say he's the 14th best quarterback in the National Football League, or 12th. That would be a good starter in the league, right? 12th best starting quarterback? That's a good NFL starter.
Well, there's 32 teams, so if you're in the top 16, you're in the top half.
Correct. So at worst, that's above average. But would you feel great even if you knew you was healthy to have Tua for the next 8 to 10 years? Paying him $50 million? That's what he is, right? He's what, the 12th best quarterback in the league? Something like that?
Yeah, I'm not big on Tua.
No, that's what I'm saying. Find that guy that you feel great about. People have called up and mocked all the Kirk Cousins contracts. Kirk Cousins is a really good NFL quarterback, but are you winning a Super Bowl with him?
Well,
it's going to be very difficult. So again, and I've defended Kirk Cousins to Howard Cross on the show many times. You guys have listened to the conversations, okay? I like Kirk, but I only want to go try to get that quarterback in the first round if I think he has a chance to be somebody that has high-end ability that can, even if it's not every year, can you like that, like Eli? Eli wasn't a top 8 quarterback every year, but he had a couple years here or there or stretches where he flashed it. and he was unbelievable for stretches.
Yes.
Give me the guy that can be unbelievable for stretches because of it, like Stafford. Even Stafford, he goes through stretches where he does not look great. Then he's other stretches where he looks like the third best quarterback in the damn league for years at a time. So that's what I'm looking for, and those are the guys that I'm willing to use serious capital on. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make a big deal about this, but I just want to be clear that I'm with him in theory, but I actually do think, like, I would have Cam Ward ranked ahead of J.J. McCarthy last year, for example, just to give you an idea of where I am. I had J.J. McCarthy, I think, as like 16th on my board last year in a very good class. I'd have Ward ahead of him. So I feel better about him as a player than I did McCarthy, which is why I would be willing, especially in a draft where you don't have that many blue chip players at the top, Paul, I'd be willing to do something like that. And that's kind of, and I feel like the Giants are also in a more quarterback needy scenario at the current time than they were last year.
I think that the issue here that you and I kind of have on a little bit of a different plane is that no rule should be hard fastened and that there are no exceptions. And see, I've always believed that if you're taking somebody in the top 5, he's got to be a slam your fist on the table. We absolutely all agree this guy is a can't miss, and we need to, because
I don't think there's any such thing as a can't miss.
Well, but that's the point, though. The point is there is no such thing as a can't miss. But I can excuse a team if they miss on somebody if everybody in the room believed it. If you have conviction, we all believe this guy can't miss, and then you guys missed, something happened, and he screwed up, well, you know what? You guys were all in on him. I'll excuse that because you all believed in unison that that's a guy you had to have. Slam your fist on the table pick. That's what they used to call him. Mm-hmm. I think your top 5 picks in every draft should be slam your fist on the table picks. Now,
I don't think that's necessarily the case for every draft, but ideally, yes.
Mostly.
Correct.
Mostly. Again, well, like I said before, there are going to be exceptions. Mm-hmm. You can't have a solid stone-cold lock rule because there are going to be circumstances and exceptions that you're going to have to bend a little for. But my general rule is you're going to take a guy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, certainly top 3. You have to be all in, slam your fist on the table. We all believe this guy's awesome, and there is no doubt, there is no hesitation. I don't see a quarterback in this draft that makes me feel that way, which is why I can't take one in the top 3.
The problem is that
but I get your point.
Those quarterbacks
I get your point.
Are very rare, and if you wait for that quarterback, you're never going to pick one.
I get your point.
Yeah.
I understand.
And I understand your point, too.
You know, because when you're that high, my God.
You don't want to be that high that often.
No, you don't want to be that high that often. And when you are, you want to make the most out of it and get a guy who's going to be like a 4 or 5-time Pro Bowl player. That's the idea, is that you get maximum value out of a pick that's that high. See, that guy's got to be dynamite.
Even though, and I will cede this to you, Ward has a lower % chance of hitting than either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter.
And that's ultimately where my risk-reward factor leans.
I'm willing to be riskier than you are.
And absolutely.
And we've had that conversation before.
I'm not a risk taker by trade.
I feel great if I don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback for the next 15 years.
I know.
Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be wonderful. I feel great about that.
You know, I don't want to get back into the charts that we went into a week or two ago.
No.
But there was one number that I did find interesting. Since the 2000 season, of the 28 different starting quarterbacks who have started a Super Bowl, only 17 of them were with the team that drafted them. The other 11 were with a second or third or fourth team. They were not with the original team that drafted them. 17 out of 28 were.
Trying to think. Garoppolo.
But 11 guys weren't.
Garoppolo, Foles.
Well, I don't have my list with me.
I'm just trying to figure out the type of players we're talking about. It would be Garoppolo, Foles, Peyton Manning. Actually, would be one of them.
Sure,
he went to Denver.
Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner is one. That's a good one.
And quite frankly, even Eli, because he wasn't drafted by the Giants. He was drafted by
that doesn't count. Come on.
technically it does.
Oh, that's bogus.
But anyway,
that's a bogus one. But yes.
You know,
and by the way, the only reason the Giants got Eli is because there were other quarterbacks in that draft.
Yes.
I know Eli played his game, or I'm not going to report. But guess what? If the Chargers didn't think they could get Phillip Rivers, they wouldn't have made that trade. At least I don't think they would have, in my opinion.
Which goes back to a conversation we had off the air. I think it was yesterday or the day before. John and I were talking about how if you're specifically looking at quarterbacks,
Goff.
This is just the most difficult,
Stafford.
rotten, tough luck year. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that it's bad timing.
I mean, it isn't.
It's bad timing.
It isn't
That's
as bad as the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis,
that
Matt
was
Corral
really bad.
year, but it's not that.
But yeah, it's
yes.
bad timing. Sometimes timing really dictates a lot of how you feel about this and which way you're willing to go and how much of a risk are you going to take.
Which is luck.
That's it.
Which is luck. All right, let's go back to the phones, 201-939-4513. Don, my computer locked here. Who's the next guy up?
Big Ed.
Big Ed in Maryland. Big Ed, what's going on?
What's up, guys?
How are you
my
doing,
God.
Big Ed? What do you got?
First of all, Paulie, how you doing, man? Sound like you got a cold. You all right?
Doesn't sound like Paul's a cold.
I got a little nasal going on. I don't know if it's an allergy, though, because my eyes were all watering yesterday, which is usually a sign of allergy.
Probably allergy then, yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm doing okay.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, guys, I'm here to help the argument. Okay, I've been listening. Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, you are absolutely right, John. What's up, John?
Hey, what's
I
up,
miss
Big
you,
Ed?
bruh.
Good.
Hey, look, man, we are really at a place where y'all are somewhat right to one degree, because timing was in a place when we got Eli. It was about timing.
Yeah.
With that draft. And it was timing about when we went on that championship run those couple of times. And because I'm seeing, I'm marveling, I'm trying to figure this out. What do we need to do? What really needs to happen here? And I'm going to simply say, if Tennessee and Cleveland pick between Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders, they get either one of those two. Whoever is left at third, which I hope is not Travis Hunter. I know, Paulie, I'm sorry, but I'm not, because we need a quarterback. You can look at every aspect of the last 4 to 6 seasons. We have not had an Eli Manning type of quarterback, and I'm going to say that part, in a long time.
You would be good picking Shedeur at number 3, Big Ed?
Really, Shedeur has gotten what I just recently heard about him, right? He's very humble. He's ready now. He would be our guy if we gonna go there.
Oh, Big Ed.
No, Big Ed, I think Shedeur actually is probably the most NFL-ready quarterback in the draft. I will say that. He comes from a pro system that Pat Shurmur runs. Giant fans are very familiar with him. He's very smart. He's very tough. And he's a good kid.
And not only that, he can get New York ready.
I don't care about that
he
stuff.
He is our New York quarterback.
And I will say this, Big Ed, he is extremely self-confident.
He is young. As a matter of fact, he's young prime time. If we don't see it now, it will be so hurtful that we didn't do this, and we're sitting here talking about it right now in March. No, we need it. That's what we do. If we don't get Cam Ward, if Cam Ward's taken first or second, fine. Shedeur Sanders is sure.
And by the way, Big Ed, would I be fall off my chair surprised if Shedeur ended up being the best quarterback in this draft? I would not. I think that's very possible.
Yeah, because nobody expected Jalen Daniels to do what he did down here.
Jalen Daniels had appreciably better tape than Shedeur did.
He did.
Yeah. And then here's the thing. I don't want to leave out Dart. If Dart can somehow get out, still be there in the second round, especially or in the third, please get Dart. I know he's not going to be. To me, he's not a top 25 quarterback.
You would double up on quarterback, Big Ed? Would you pick Shedeur and Dart if Dart's there in round 2? Would you double up?
Yes.
Oh, I like it.
Talking about.
I like it.
Because you know why? Think about what the Redskins, and I'm going to call them that because that's when they did it.
No, that's fine.
They got RG3 and Kirk Cousins in the
Big Ed,
I know.
in that same draft. And they were both great.
And
Kirk Cousins, are you kidding me?
I like the aggressive mindset.
Please get him.
I like the aggressive. Big Ed, thank you for the call. That's awesome.
Because you know what? Quick, and because I want to hold y'all up.
Yeah.
Right? But you're right about the tackle, and we should sign Ojulari. Just give him enough. Give him enough. At least 1 year deal, something like $5 to $12 million with a lot of bonuses on it. That will keep him because we love him. That boy, good, man. He's a great defensive player. He will add, but we need that tackle with Dexter Lawrence. That's the key. And the safeties, we got it.
Thank you, Big Ed. Appreciate the call, my friend. I like the all-in. I do. Look, if you want to make sure you get a quarterback, pick more than one. Boom. I like it. It's another perspective, and I understand it. Take as many swings as you can. Especially if you don't let's say you don't come out of free agency with one of these really good veterans, and you really got to go hard in the draft. Go hard, baby.
That's going hard.
Let me ask you something.
But I will say this, all right, with the amount of depth that some of these other positions, especially what the Giants need on defense, you got to remember something. If you're going to go with a second quarterback, you're passing up on good defensive talent really could use.
I was having fun with it. I think I'd be too squeamish to do that even.
Yeah, I think you would come back to earth on that one, and you would not make that pick.
I'd be a little squeamish.
Okay, I don't think you're that crazy.
How about Schmeelk and 3 to go with Shedeur?
That's what I was going to say. I think if you take Shedeur, I don't hate
1 and 2.
I don't hate Schmeelk in round 3 if you take Shedeur.
See,
assuming free agency goes
correct.
Bad.
I'm with you on that.
I will say this to you. If I can't get Dart, right? Now, I was trying to trade to 27. You're right. Maybe he doesn't make it.
That's a really good question. What would you do if you can't get Dart?
If I can't get Dart, I would think about Schmeelk and 3. I would try to get him there if I had to.
He would be your next guy.
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't ask you this after the interview because we interviewed Greg Cosell at the Combine. He was on Thursday's Big Blue Kickoff Live, if I recall properly, last week. If you guys didn't listen to it, go check it out. Great interview. There are a few people I know you have more respect for in their analysis than Greg Cosell. Mm-hmm. He did. Cam Ward.
I know he did.
Did that move you?
He also loved Schmeelk.
Did that move you at all?
It just made me fortify my belief that Ward was the best quarterback in this draft. That's how it moved.
Because he said it. He would have no issue with the Giants picking him at 3.
Correct. And
I wonder if that moved you at all.
That didn't.
To go back and maybe watch a little bit more.
It didn't move me to get to that point, but it clearly hammered home the fact that Ward was the best quarterback in this draft because I understood what he said. And it widened the gap for me. But it did not prompt me to want to take him at 3. But Schmeelk was the other guy that he really boosted up too.
And here's the thing.
That's why I'm thinking third round for him may not be a bad idea.
And I have not done my tape study on Schmeelk.
I haven't done it either.
He's on my list.
I haven't done it either.
It's on the wall right there.
Too many people that we know who know their stuff.
That I respect.
Love his traits. They're football people.
Cassell and Brugler are the two guys that I lean a lot on.
They're football people.
And I'll do my own evaluation.
And they're not about hype.
And again, I saw Schmeelk at the Senior Bowl. I've watched some of his stuff. I just haven't done my full evaluation. Heck, I haven't even completely finished Ward and Sanders, but I've watched 6 or 7 games for each guys, and I feel confident talking about them based off of that number of games.
Right.
And I've seen both on TV a ton too, so I have a lot of exposure to both guys. But though I have the guys that I have a ton of respect for, speak very highly of those guys.
Yeah. No, I know, and that's why I think of all the quarterbacks in the draft, Schmeelk is going to be that dark horse guy who probably rises up the most because now
he's not going to get to round 3, and I'm going to be annoyed.
Yeah. Now, when you talk to Tony Pauline, during the course of the offseason,
he is not as high on Schmeelk as the other guys.
All right, I get that, but Tony also gets the pulse of what's going on in the marketplace.
He is not. When I talked to him on Tuesday, he had not yet. Actually, we recorded on Monday, I think, and he had not yet talked to people off the Combine in terms of what he's hearing. All right. We did not have that. We're going to have that conversation on next week's draft season. Go check that out. It'll air next Tuesday.
I got the impression, again, not after a lot of conversation, but short conversation, I got the impression that Schmeelk coming into the draft was probably a 5th rounder.
Coming off this season?
Yes. He was probably a 5 based on his body of work.
I think.
And now he's
3 or 4 is what I would say.
Okay, well, but now...
He had a good year this year, but it was his first really good year.
Yeah. Remember, he was a late bloomer.
Remember, though,
in every way.
A late bloomer in terms of production, but he was like a 5-star top recruit.
Yes. And now we're talking about 3rd round. You might get queasy on him.
No, I know.
I mean, that's quite a jump.
I know. But I think he was higher than you think coming off the season.
Maybe he was. Now, I didn't really know of him until recent time.
He couldn't start for more than 3 or 4 games a year because of injuries, and he played for Louisville, who wasn't that great of a team this year. So I get that.
Did you catch his podium?
He's great.
He was like out of Central Casting, wasn't he?
Him and Dart both of them were really good.
Dart and
frankly,
Schmeelk
all
were
4
both out of Central Casting.
All 4 quarterbacks were fine. I did not. I admit I did not watch Shedeur at the Senior Bowl because I saw him at Shrine and I've seen him talk a bajillion times.
Right.
He's very polished, extremely polished.
Oh, sure.
Cam Ward was good. Shook was great. Dart was good. I thought all the quarterbacks. Look, all these guys have training now.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard to be bad. If you're bad at the podium as a quarterback, it's a bad sign.
Oh, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've heard Shook has done good in the meetings with teams.
Again, that
I have no idea if the Giants have met with him, but from other people that have told me that they've talked to people, he's done pretty good in the meetings. Remember, he's been in 3 or 4 different systems too.
Yes.
So that's going to help you.
Well, we've talked about that the last couple of years, about these guys who go through the transfer
And I
portal.
don't mind the age, Paul.
So
you still have him for 2 contracts.
Like I said, if I don't get Jackson Dart, I'll take him in the 3rd round if I can. You don't have to sell me on him.
Our final caller, Paul, you had a question for him at the end of our show yesterday, and now you can ask it. Let's go to Charlie in Portland, Maine. Hi, Charlie.
Wow. Hey, Charlie.
Paul, ask your question of Charlie.
I forgot what it was.
Hey, old shook up.
Oh, Charlie. Yeah, John's just reminding me. So in all of your infinite wisdom, Charlie.
Now, and remember, I think I said he wouldn't, right? If I remember right?
That's what you said.
Correct.
That's what you said. Charlie, you're now going to be able to either debunk our thoughts about you or otherwise. How do you feel about Aaron Rodgers?
No, never, no way. Never.
Okay. How
He's
about
41 years old. He's a nutcase. He would be a distraction.
I figure that's why you'd like him, Charlie. You guys can hang out together.
I mean, we're just thinking birds of a feather flock together, Charlie.
You guys can start talking about like natural
he's
solutions to medical problems. It'll be great.
Dark rooms.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I got a couple of things. One of the callers, he was talking about, well, we're in this position. You know who put us in this position? Shane. Because we had 6 good quarterbacks last year, and he didn't take a 1. All right? So now we're in this position because of him. 3 years he never drafted a quarterback. He hung on to a quarterback who was, as I knew, and you guys finally knew, was not very good. And finally, after 5.5 years, they decided to release him.
Charlie,
just remember, Joe Shane didn't choose to keep him for 5.5 years, Charlie. Joe Shane chose to keep him
I said
after
3 years. He kept him for 3 years, all right?
Charlie, could I ask you something? No, please. It's important. It's important you answer this question before you go further. Because we need to put it in perspective.
Let's not rehash the Jones thing, please.
No, I'm not going to.
I don't want to rehash
I'm not going to.
I don't.
Okay.
But with what was committed to Jones, they took Neighbors. What would you have done at that pick instead of taking Malik Neighbors? Understanding that you had a big commitment to Jones. What would you have done?
I would have taken Penix.
You would have.
No, Charlie loved Penix last year.
You did. I do remember
Charlie
that.
loved Penix last year.
I didn't know you would have taken him at that pick.
No, he would have. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I would. You remember what George Young said when he picked Sims? You remember what he picked? He picked him at 7 or 9.
Right.
And somebody asked him, why did you pick him so high? He was like rated 26th or 27th in the first round. And you know what Young said? I didn't have the 27th pick.
Right.
I had the 9th pick or the 7th pick. And that's the same thing. And now we're hearing that, they liked Penix, but they didn't like him in the first round. They only liked him in the second round.
Well,
it's just
but Charlie, here's the thing.
Stupid.
Charlie,
if you like the guy...
No, but you like him. Clara, jeez. Charlie, you can like guys. See, this is me trying to get my daughter to listen to me. I'm not trying to get Charlie to listen to me. So I went into the same thing.
Is that the same thing? Actually?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
So Charlie, just so because I felt the same way, right? I had Penix with the way I graded him. I thought he could be an above-average NFL starter. For me, that's a second-round player. So I had him graded as a second-round player. I just had this conversation, right, about where I think Penix can be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Do I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be good enough to lead a team to a Super Bowl? I'm not sure about that, which is why I had him as a guy at the top of the second round, which is why I wouldn't feel comfortable taking him at 6th overall. So you can like a player, but you might not like him enough. Maybe you don't love the player. Maybe you just like the player. There are different levels to this, is my point.
Charlie, you would not want this front office, no matter what you think of them, you would not want this front office to take a guy that they don't have belief in and is way overvalued at that pick. You would not want them to do that.
If you think a guy is a good quarterback at 2, like Hurts, you didn't think Hurts, who thought Hurts might take somebody to a Super Bowl, but you thought he was good enough to take a second-round pick or maybe even move up the end of the first round to get him, like you want to do with Dart, but you don't want to take him higher because that's where you pick. Is totally insane to me.
No, but Charlie,
totally
it's a choice,
right?
It's not that in a vacuum.
And it's the wrong
It's what
choice.
other player you can pick instead of him.
Choice. That's why we're in the situation we're in.
But Charlie, you're only talking about the success stories.
They have to move up and get Cam Ward, or stay there and pick Cam or Shador, whoever's there. You don't play around with this anymore. You haven't picked a quarterback in 3 years. You haven't drafted one.
Which veteran are you going to sign, Charlie? Which veteran are you going to sign? They're going to get a veteran next week. Who's it going to be?
It doesn't matter because we're not going to win games no matter who that veteran is. Have you seen our schedule? Have you seen our schedule? I don't care if Wilson's there, Winston's there. I mean, It doesn't matter. Get Winston. He wants to play here. Get Winston.
It doesn't
matter. Get Cam Ward, and you got DeVito. Ride with that. Because you know what? This year is about one thing, not winning games. It's about finding your quarterback. And when you see that you got your quarterback, this is a successful year, just like they did in New England.
Charlie,
with,
Charlie, hold on.
They had 4 wins, 13 losses, but they knew they have their guy, their franchise guy.
I want to be very aggressive trying to find a quarterback. I'm with you on that.
And I would take another quarterback later in the rounds, like McCord or Leonard or whoever. I would trade for Milton in a heartbeat. You know, we need quarterbacks because they put themselves in this position, because they put themselves behind the 8 ball of Daniel Jones. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the call.
Okay.
Hey, look, I agree with the general philosophy of being very aggressive at the quarterback position. With that said, there are tiers to this, right? You know, you have opportunity cost of picking a certain player in a certain spot. Who are the guys you're not getting if you're picking a quarterback at that spot? You know, I can go through these quarterbacks. Charlie, you know, talks about Penix like we know he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Well, let's say Michael Penix, and I think this would be a wild success story. Right. Okay? What if he ends up being as good as Dak Prescott? And I think right now, if you told the Falcons Michael Penix is as good as Dak Prescott,
thrilled.
They would sign there for a second.
Absolutely,
okay? In a second. And I'm a Dak Prescott fan.
And I'm not. But I understand where he ranks.
In 5 years, when you have to figure out if you're going to pay him or not, would you feel good about him being the 3rd overall pick?
Probably not.
Let's say he's as good as Tua.
I don't think so.
Let's say he's as good as Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, that guy's another question mark right now.
Well, I'm throwing names out there. I'm giving you all the guys that are outside of the top 5. All right?
And that's the problem.
I'm giving you the guys. And again, this is a small group, right?
Well, this goes back to our conversation of a few weeks ago when we said, who are the elite quarterbacks in this league?
And we came up with 5 or 6.
And that's it. And
you had the 4 easy ones: Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes, and who was my 4th guy? Josh Allen.
Right.
Those are the 4.
Right.
And then we had Stafford for periods of time,
And
maybe not over a whole year, and maybe Herbert. Those are our 6.
So
okay?
It's like, and if you want to play the game that if you don't have one of those guys, you can't win, well, then just fold the league because there's not enough to go around.
Right, but you want to try to find a guy you think can be one of those guys. And do I think, and I'll be being totally honest with you, if I thought Michael Penix could be one of those guys, I would have picked him at 6 last year.
Right, but I don't think anybody believed that.
I mean, the Falcons apparently did. They picked him at 6.
Yeah.
So, look, there might be 28 teams that think Shedeur Sanders is the 20th best quarterback in this draft. And Daniel Jeremiah said this on his Move the Sticks podcast the other day. There might be 28 teams that have Shedeur Sanders no higher than 15th on their draft board. Do you know how many teams it takes to have him in the top 5? For him to get picked in the top 5?
One. That's it.
Takes 1.
Out of 32.
And it's such a valuable position. That team will figure out a way to get up there and take that player. So that's why this is so difficult.
Even if you just want to look at this franchise, okay?
And by the way, I did not have Penix in the Dak Prescott range either in terms of my future.
Yeah, I certainly didn't.
So
now, if you just wanted to look at this franchise,
if I could get a Dak Prescott level quarterback, and you promised me he has Dak's career at 3, I would pick that player.
Yeah,
but I did not have. I just want to be clear so Troy doesn't call back. Well, if you think Penix was Dak, why didn't you take him? I did not think.
Nobody did.
I just wanted to be clear about that.
The Falcons probably did.
I just wanted to be clear about that.
But the point being, and this is not a history lesson, folks, but this Giants team took a big chance when they took Phil Simms. They took a big swing when they made the deal to get Eli. Ernie, of course, he's a generational guy, and I know you don't like that word. But Ernie, of course, he believed that Eli was that special. He had to go get him. Okay? Now, with Simms, it worked. With Eli, it worked. But they went and took Daniel Jones in the top 10, and it didn't work.
Which, by the way, is very similar to this conversation.
Right.
Like Daniel and Shedeur would probably be ranked around. Shedeur would probably be ranked a little higher than him, but they would probably be in the same type of zone in terms of how you would grade them out. I think Shedeur would probably end up being a little bit higher, but
I recall in the 24 hours leading into the draft, you and I both said if the Giants took Jones at 17, we could understand it. I don't think either one of us thought they would take him at 6.
Yeah, and I look like a schmuck when they picked him at 6.
Okay, but we face up to everything we say here on this program.
You guys heard me say it on the show. I've been made fun of constantly for that, which is fine.
We thought that there was a much better chance they would take him at 17.
Yes.
But they got aggressive. They took the risk, and they went for the gusto. And Daniel Jones did not work out.
Which is exactly what Charlie wants them to do here.
Right. But yet he hated Daniel Jones. So, do you want to repeat? Now, remember when they took Dave Brown? Supplemental draft, first-round draft pick. He was sitting there, and the Giants were the only ones that put in for him, and they had to give up their first rounder the following year because Phil Simms was at the end of his career, and George Young knew they had to have a generational, let me get off that word, they had to have a franchise quarterback. Okay, so we're going to put in the supplemental draft out of Duke, first round. We're spending next year's first rounder on Dave Brown. And look, he was a really good guy and a really smart guy. He was not worth that in any way, shape, or form. And it turned out to set this franchise back a number of years.
Go back to the Jake Locker, Christian Ponder draft, just to give you another example. It's hard. Look, and again, quarterback evaluation is very difficult. Like Steve Palazzolo and I talked about this in the Giants huddle. His whole thing is that he's like, I don't even want to judge a general manager over how they evaluate quarterbacks because it's so hard.
Right.
And I kind of get that. It's almost like a completely separate thing.
It goes back to the theory.
And I know fans probably will roll their eyes when I say this with Dable and Shane and the guys they have reportedly liked before the draft even happened, by the way. They seem to be able to identify the guys that are going to be pretty good.
We think.
Now, the proof's not in the pudding yet. They haven't picked one themselves, but I would put faith in their evaluation.
The only thing that's guaranteed, folks, is that hindsight is going to be correct. That's fact. Hindsight will always be correct because with hindsight, you can always make the right decision.
Right, and I want to have a conversation in 3 years over where Penix McCarthy, and Knicks are. And let's see in 3 years when they're done with their rookie contracts or their fifth-year options being picked up, let's see where they are.
Yeah.
I want to see where they are. Because I guarantee all three of them are not going to be great quarterbacks. They're not.
We will see.
That's not the way the NFL works.
No.
Generally speaking.
I get you.
Paul, good stuff.
You too.
So Paul's off tomorrow. Are you back with me on Monday? I think you are. I think it's
so.
Me and you Monday.
I think so.
But Lance and I tomorrow, I will get Lance's idea of what the Giants should do in free agency, combined with maybe some draft stuff too, and then we'll just take your calls on free agency on what you think the Giants should do, how aggressive they should be, and kind of what their overall strategy should be in free agency. Great job by Dom. He's back with us tomorrow as well. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Adios.